Okay, welcome back to another video. This one is going to be rather short. So we are still reviewing all those little techniques and tools that came up in the 18th video when we had our major lecture on 3D modeling. We still have a couple more videos like this one before we can go back to the really exciting stuff. So let's see if we can power through it. The topic of this video is visualizing and fixing normals. Fortunately, there is not a whole lot to say about it, but it is absolutely fundamental to understand normals in the context of 3D modeling and face orientation. To put it simply, normals are vectors that indicate in which direction a face or vertex is pointing. So each face of a geometry has one normal, and it always points perpendicular to its surface. So these normals determine the front side of a face. That is a concept that we have in 3D, the front side of a face. And this is important for shading, for physics, and especially when we start exporting our 3D models to other softwares or game engines. Now, when we previously discussed normals, it was in the context of materials. We were in our shader editor. And what we were really doing when we were passing all that information through the normals socket was providing an XYZ vector to Blender to sort of artificially create the illusion of a more complex surface in our material. However, this all ties back to the true normal of the face. So all that magic comes from the material that is applied to the face. And so if the face is pointing in the wrong direction, nothing good is gonna come out of it. In fact, the first sign of a messed up normal are artifacts and glitches and weird things in the shading and the preview of it. Alright, cool. So now I'm gonna demonstrate how to visualize the normals. Then we'll talk about what usually causes the issue. And lastly, how to fix it. And really, it's all rather simple. Okay, so I'm gonna start by creating a plane so that we can talk about normals with a really simple geometry. So to visualize normals, all you need to do is go way up here where you have the show overlays, and from the extras you can select face orientation. Now, in previous versions of Blender, the face orientation would turn on a mode where the front side of the faces would turn blue and the reverse would turn red. But with newer versions of Blender, the new default is that the front side of a face keeps the material that has assigned to it. So if I make it green, it will stay green like this, alright? Now, if I go and look underneath, you will see that now that face is red. So this is telling me that this is the reverse side of that face. And I know that this one is the front side because it has the same material that I have assigned to it. Now, if you had a red color assigned to it, just like we had in our Mocha, that might end up being rather confusing, especially if you're not used to it and you're not used to recognizing this specific kind of red as opposed to this one, which is using the roughness and reflection and so on. Anyway, I'm gonna keep it on a pure white just to keep things simple and avoid any confusion. And to move forward, I'm gonna select our plane, enter edit mode, and what we can do from edit mode is go over here and click on this icon, and this will display the actual normals, the actual perpendicular normal of the face. Now, if I were to extrude this edge sideways, I'm creating a new face. And so now you see that each face has its own normal. And if I were to change the angle of it, you can see that the normal is always perpendicular to the surface. So that is how you visualize normals. From the edit mode, you turn on this setting. And from object mode, you can turn on the face orientation, which kind of conveys the same information. Now, a pro tip is this. When you have a 3D model that has a lot of faces like this one, if you leave on that setting that shows the actual normal for every face, you will have a total mess. So, if you absolutely need to have those normals showing, what you want to do is adjust the size to something small, like this one, or even smaller, like this one. And this will provide you with the necessary information without being an overwhelming mess. Otherwise, you can totally turn it off. As you can see, I have changed the material of our coffee maker to white to avoid any confusion. And if you recall, in the previous video, we talked about that technique where you can create a plane, merge all the vertices at the center, and then you get yourself a little vertex that you can start to extrude and create some edges to have clean sort of curves that describe organic shapes. Although we made clear the distinction that we're talking about curves here kind of informally, because technically a curve is something else. These are edges. And then we have applied a subdivision modifier to sort of have this really smooth flowing curvatures. And we went through this process because our plan was to later on create faces by connecting those edges, right? Like this. Now, as you can see, what I have just done, when you create vertices and faces like this, Blender doesn't necessarily know which way the correct forward side is. And so what you might end up having is a situation like this one where you are creating faces and some get created facing one way and some others are facing another way. This can create a situation like this one where you have some parts of your 3D model that are facing one way and some others that are facing the opposite way. And so you start to have artifacts like this one where the subdivision modifier gets applied to it, but because there is an inconsistency in orientation, it creates this weird looking artifact that is not supposed to be there. This is kind of an unexpected result. Now, if we didn't have our face orientation turned on, we would not be able to tell that the orientation is messed up, other than the fact that this really weird looking thing shows up. And so this is one of the first signs that something is wrong and that we should turn on the face orientation to investigate further. So now that you know how to visualize the normals and the face orientation, the way to fix them is rather simple. You enter edit mode, you press A as in all to select everything, and you really want to make sure you have your whole mesh selected, because now we're going to perform a calculation that recalculates the normals for the entire object. And so we want to make sure that that calculation takes into account all the faces of the object. That is why we are selecting all. And then we're going to press Shift+N, and that will most likely recalculate everything with the correct orientation. In some cases, what will happen will be that the whole thing gets recalculated so that everything is facing in the same orientation, but it is inside out. So it would look something like this. In that case, you would just go here and toggle this one, which allows you to flip it in that direction that you want it to face. Now, that is pretty much all that there is to it. One more thing that I have learned over the years, if that doesn't fix it, which sometimes it can happen, there is one last resort, which is to go over meshes, normals, and here you have a sort of extended menu of things that you can do with your normals. And the usual lifesaver is this one, reset vectors. So if everything else fails, what you can do is go and use reset vectors, and that will fix almost everything. Alright, so that wraps it up for this video. Hopefully it was quick and painless, but also useful. Like I said at the beginning, we still have a couple more of these videos just to finish up discussing some techniques that we have not covered yet, but that are absolutely fundamental. These are all things that you need to know to move forward. And after this few more videos, we can finally go back to the really exciting stuff. So I'll see you in the next video.